This is part one of my new series, When Nothing Matters. Before I even say anything, before I get started, I just want to say right off the bat, I'm not interested in trying to change your opinion about masks, whether to wear them or not, the virus, whether it's a danger or not, politics, or anything related with that, or who's right or who's wrong. I don't care. That's not my point at all. That's not what I'm talking about. And so don't get all defensive and think that I'm saying something I'm not. I'm not saying, trying to sway your opinion on those things at all. Okay, so let me just start out with that. Somewhere along 2020, something very devious happened. We reduced our existence to nothing more than survival. It didn't have a point to it. It was just survival. We locked ourselves in our houses, which I'm not saying being cautious was a bad move. It's, I'm really not concerned with changing anybody's opinions on that aspect. But we allowed ourselves to get into this kind of unhealthy mindset of survival for the point of survival. We lost focus of life. We stopped having dreams and aspirations. It was all reduced to survival. And if life is nothing more than surviving, it is ultimately unsatisfying. And even worse, it's pointless. It becomes pointless. There's no purpose behind it. See, if life is nothing more than survival, then ultimately it doesn't matter if I give up. See what I mean? There's no purpose behind it. So if my existence is just an attempt to survive, well, then that means whenever I'm done surviving, it doesn't really matter. See what I mean? And therein lies the heart of a real big problem. And I think that even in the church world, some things happen very subtly that were just shouldn't have been. And I think that regardless of whether they happened, okay, that's just it. But there's some things that have kind of been unhealthy developments that we should probably start changing, start readdressing. And one of those is that we deemed the church as non-essential. Now, I know some of you right now are rolling your eyes. Oh, back to this. Hear me out, okay? We deemed the church as non-essential. But then we said, okay, it's living unhealthy and in a constant state of panic, which we know tears up the immune system, acting ugly to people, those things are essential. And it would be so much easier if Christians could just say, well, it's the world, those sinners out there. But the problem is that's not what's happening. Christians are nitpicking too. Christians are gossiping too. Christians are complaining too. Christians are living for themselves too. This isn't like the sinners out there. The church has just drastically changed their focus as well. Now, this is very surprising because according to a Gallup poll, that was crazy. Shifted in my chair and it did not like that, evidently. According to a Gallup poll that was done towards the end of 2020, the only group of people to show an increase in mental health were those who went to church once a week. Now, the different categories were based on sex, male or female. Income level. Sorry, brain fart there. Income level. High income, middle income, low income. It was based on political affiliation. Republican, Democrat, Independent, I think were the three breakdowns they had there. It's all these different things. And everybody had a decrease in mental health. And as a nation, the mental health, went down too. The only group that saw an increase in mental health were people who went to church once a week. But yet we're still saying, hey, a church is not essential. We need to stay home, even though it's proving that that's not true. Well, see, that's the thing. The thing is there's more research than just that too. It's long been known. These are facts I'm throwing out here, that those involved in religion live longer. And are generally happier and healthier. Also, those who are part of a community or a group live longer and are generally happier, don't get sick as often. Yet we're still trying to tell ourselves that it's a good thing to be isolated. People who are going through burnout or depression, isolation can be devastating. Depression can be caused by big things like this going on. So, maybe we need to start readdressing the issue. Well, it's not safe. I get that. Okay, I'm not trying to change anybody's opinions on masks or politics or anything. What I'm saying is we're looking forward, okay? Maybe you're not comfortable with going back to church yet, but have a plan. Okay, so maybe not right now. Okay, all right. But have a plan to get back in there and get involved. It's not good what we're doing. And once again, I'm really not trying to take sides in politics and all that kind of stuff. And, oh, well, the Republicans or, the Democrats. I really just don't care. Okay, that's completely not my point at all. Research shows last year, and this is something you can look up yourself, in the U.S., there were about 400,000 people who died of COVID-19 last year. Now, this is the official statistic, okay? This isn't something that I've changed. Now, some people would say, well, they manipulated the numbers. Okay, all right. Once again, not getting involved in that argument. I don't care for it. My main point is the official count is 400,000, regardless of whether you agree with it or not. That's the official count, okay? So, while about 480,000 people died of smoking. Now, you might say, what's the connect? Once again, hold on. The connect is this. Smoking is something that people use as a stress reliever, and COVID-19 is a stressor. So here we have the stress reliever is actually more deadly than the stressor itself. Now you might say, well, that's like comparing apples and oranges. Once again, please don't miss my point here. Suicides and overdoses skyrocketed in 2020. Now, of course, we don't have the official numbers yet. It takes them a couple years to get that all figured out. But this is according to the CDC, okay? And yet, we still act like it's normal for us to pack into Walmart but run away from church. Research shows that that's just not true. It's just not true. There's so many different things that I could say about this that I'm trying to really just stay on point. Of everyone who died from COVID-19, according to the CDC, 94% had other complications. Now, some people would say that this means that only, that there's a 98 point something percent survival rate or something. I forget exactly how they figure it out, but somewhere in the upper 90% of survival rate. Once again, I'm not arguing that point at all. Some people think that COVID played a big part in their deaths. Some people think that it played a very small part in their deaths. I don't know. I don't care. My main point being unhealthy is not, and acting out and that kind of stuff, having these unresolved tensions, that's not going to help the case. So the real point in all this that I'm trying to make is that we have bought into this idea in the U.S. at least. I don't know how things are in the rest of the world, since trade has been, not trade, travel has been kind of restricted. But we've bought into this idea that nothing really matters because we traded life for survival. And so the conclusion becomes, I'm insignificant. You see what I'm saying? That when you have no purpose and drive in your life, you have no mission, and life becomes nothing more than getting through the day, then ultimately, what does it matter? This isn't something that I'm just shooting off the top of my head. This is things that, have you talked to people lately? If you've been in deep quarantine, you probably haven't. But I have. And there's a lot of people struggling with really big issues. And, then on top of that, people are still having those soul-searching questions about what's my purpose in life. And you sit in your house and you forget that there's a whole world out there. Or you get out there and you just do it kind of like to blow off steam or something. And So the conclusion that we inevitably get to is, I'm just insignificant. Nothing really matters. And when you get to that place, well, it's not a great place to be with, and that's what we're going to be looking at for the next two parts after this part. This is a 3-part sermon series. When nothing matters, we're going to look at this idea of, does nothing matter, and trying to find purpose and trying to rediscover, our goals. And that's what this series is really focused on. So the increase of stress, obviously, it's all around, is the lack of exercise. Sitting in our house just watching TV, for instance, and unhealthy eating habits, isolation. It's destroyed our immune systems. It's destroyed our physical health. Bodies weren't meant to this. I mean, if we compare ourselves with our ancestors who lived thousands and thousands of years ago, this is just not what our bodies were made for. I think of the movie WALL-E, where it has all the fat people on the carts. Anyways, if you haven't seen it, it's kind of a funny thing. But the problem is that on a spiritual level, we've also been massively affected. Our faith, our purpose, and our drive, they've all been damaged in this. I was reading a book by Andrew Schwab, and he was watching this show about hoarding. I think it was actually called Hoarders. And he started doing a little bit of research, and he found that the majority of people who hoard are usually males, and usually people subjected to long, lengthy amounts of isolation. Have you noticed, for instance, how we're all staying at home and buying a bunch of packages, and we just love to get packages? It makes us so happy, but it's kind of not making us as happy as it did before. See, the problem is that happiness becomes the goal instead of purpose. See, I'm pursuing happiness instead of purpose. And you might say, well, what's the difference? When you pursue happiness, you never attain it. When you live with purpose, happiness will follow, because there's a reason for what you do. And in my opinion, that's a lot more important. So in order to deal, and I'm coming back to the whole smoking thing, you're probably thinking, well, he just gonna one of those people. Here's the thing. I think that absolutely smoking has kind of been blown out of proportion with, from a theological perspective, but I also think that it's extremely, it's not that I think, this is facts, it's extremely dangerous for your body to smoke. It's just really bad for you. But in order to deal with all that stress, always constant stress and fear, the inactivity, the pointlessness, and it's not like we can just go out and be entertained anymore. The movie theaters are closed. Oh, let's go out and eat. Well, they're closed too. So we had all these little entertainment things to blow off steam and to clear our heads and to distract us from our unhappiness and from our lack of contentment. Well, now we don't have those things. And so in order to deal with our stress and our fear and our inactivity and our pointless existence and all this different stuff, we've resorted to things that make the problem worse. And well, what do you do? Well, now I'm going to bounce back to the whole smoking thing. See, the smoking, in my opinion, is this coping mechanism. It's used to avoid dealing with the issue that's actually the issue. You see people do this with burnout too. They're tired, they're just worn out. So instead of addressing the burnout and getting the rest that their body just needs, instead, they start focusing on fixing the one thing. Oh, well, I'm just going to take a little nap today. Oh, well, I'm going to take some pills. Or, oh, I'm going to, those things are whatever. But the main point is the burnout is still there. It still needs to be addressed. That problem is still there that needs to be addressed. So smoking, that's something that people go to, and it doesn't really fix the problem. It just, well, it has a lot of negative outcomes with it. Here's another one: overeating. You show me somebody with anger problems, and I'll show you a person who's had trauma in their childhood. You show me a person who overeats, and I can show you their trauma that they've endured, or someone who smokes. This anxiety that they've had, and it's just their coping mechanisms. This is usually what's at the heart of porn too. It's not this simple. Oh, I like masturbating. It's almost never that simple, especially when you see people with excessive porn addictions. You start going back and you see that this became their coping mechanism of this past hurt that they couldn't deal with or process. And so you see all this, and it's unhealthy ways that we've started dealing with these big problems. So let me give you a couple quick tips, and then I'm going to go forward into the rest of the sermon. So some quick tips. First off, manage your days and still do things. Get up, take a shower, make your bed, have a plan for the day. Well, even if it's just, I'm going to read a book. So read a book. Don't just sit around and do nothing. And watching TV really isn't a plan, just to throw that out there. Some more quick tips here. Exercise. Your body really needs that activity. It can really help. Eat healthier. Stop eating junk food all the time. Stop eating chips all the time. If you just have to be snacking because you're so bored, then eat something like carrots or something. Don't just sit around eating potato chips. I mean, there's got to be healthier decisions you can make. Another idea is get off social media. It's just kind of like a drama train that makes like there's just a lot of heaviness and hopelessness all around us. People with just this crushing, soul-killing weight on them. You can see it on the faces of people as you walk by. They're just everywhere. Everyone has it. And then you go on Facebook and everybody's just unloading their emotional baggage on other people. And you've got all these people who are just going through all these hard times and not processing it and handing it off to other people. And everybody's getting mad at each other. And nobody's trying anymore. There's just this deadness that has set in, and that's really a big problem. Turn off the news. At this point, you're really not going to miss too much. It's just going to make you upset. Or have a time limit. For 5 minutes, I'm just going to catch the highlights real quick, and don't get bogged down with the little things. These are all ideas. Your body needs breaks. You might not like it, but your body is definitely finite. It's limited. It's weak. It's frail. And when you continually subject it day after day after day, it's just not going to go well. So the problem is that this idea that nothing matters, it's because of how we are living. We've gotten to this place of, nothing really matters, and it's just all around us and crushing us, because nothing does matter right now. We're living cooped up in our houses with no dreams, no purposes. People weren't meant to live like that. You can't cage people up. You know what I mean? Animals in zoos live longer. People in cages don't. Anyways, I was talking to a licensed professional. I forget if there was a counselor or a psychologist. I don't remember, and please do forgive my ignorance. I'm not good at remembering which mental science. I just have a hard time remembering those things. But anyways, I was talking to them, and they was talking about the way that when there's a big event like a global crisis or a large-scale trauma, that people actually suffer from large-scale PTSD, which really surprised me. And when people go through those kinds of mental traumas, they have a hard time in controlling because they go into kind of a fight-or-flight kind of mentality. And it makes it where it's harder for them to think clearly, to act rationally, to talk clearly. So, I mean, these are all good things to remember. I know a lot of people thought, oh no, just because I'm not scared of the virus, that means that it's not affecting me at all. And it's like, that's just not true. It doesn't matter whether you were scared about it or not, whether you're okay with the presidential election or not okay with the presidential election, or whether any of those things, that doesn't matter. It's still going to have an effect on you. And definitely something that's worth thinking about. And I think this is one of the things that's happened with pastors. See, when one of the most prone vocations to get burnout is pastoring. So you have all these pastors who were tired for so long, beat down. Well, then this happened, and they had to close their doors. And now you're finding that these pastors aren't wanting to go back to preaching on Sunday mornings. They like going out and fishing. Why? Because they've been burned out and drugged through the mud for so long. Now they can close their doors, and they don't have to worry about the board members, staging a coup against them, because it's closed. So they can actually get away and get a break without having to deal with the hassles. You can't endure that much stress. Okay, if even pastors are thinking, let the world burn, I'm going to go out and go fishing, then, I mean, surely we can see that as, we're having problems here. We're all needing a lot of problems, to fix a lot of problems. And so if you go back, we were having divisive times, and everybody was making the comment, well, it'll be better after we do this, after we pass this law, after we do this, after we get proactive about passing these laws. And all this. Well, then there was COVID. I'll feel better after there's a vaccine. Well, okay, now there's a vaccine, and now there's a new strain. I'll feel better once there's a vaccine about the new strain. Here's the point I want to get out of all that, okay? What are you waiting for to live a life worth living? This is not about wearing masks or not wearing masks. This is not about viruses. This is about having a purpose in your life and living with that purpose. A purpose that stays with you regardless of whether you are in your house or at work, wearing masks or not wearing masks, politically active, politically inactive, whatever it is, a purpose. And that's something that the church has lost. All around us, we see this hopelessness on everybody's faces, and we have that same hopelessness, that same PTSD, and we're all trying to pretend like, oh, it's okay because, I'm a Christian, so I've got Jesus with me. And the thing is, it's like, that doesn't mean that you don't have to get healing. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't have to go to the doctor because Jesus. What? That doesn't make any sense. Jesus doesn't always heal for everything, and he still expects you to take care of things. Even when he brought Israel into the promised land, they still had to go and get the minerals from the hills, mine out the rocks. They still had to go and plant for the harvest. They still had to go and shepherd the flock. Like, it's not like just because they were in the promised land that they didn't have to worry about anything. Even Jesus, when he was on earth, didn't go and heal every single person in the whole world. Like, there comes a point when you have to say, okay, maybe my theology is a little bit whack on this one, and I need to realize that I am a frail person. And regardless of your charismatic beliefs or whatnot, you still have to take care of your body. Do you have to eat? Do you have to sleep? Yes? Okay, so maybe we need to come up with the idea that maybe we also need to get healing for our mental trauma that we've been going through. So, Psalm 23 is where we're going to be looking at tonight, or I guess it's actually more of the afternoon, but whatever. The Lord is my shepherd, I will not be in need. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. Man, I always heard these verses growing up, and I had no idea what he was talking about. He restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for the sake of his name. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Oh, I reformatted it. You have anointed my head with oil, but it's not showing up on the thing. That's weird. Certainly goodness and faithfulness will follow me all the days of my life, and my dwelling will be in the house of the Lord forever. So let's look at a few things here. First off, let's see if I can open this in a way that's going to actually let me see the stuff. So first off, this verse that, everybody knows these verses, but oftentimes the meaning is lost on it. There it is. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. That's the part that was missing. I don't know why I reformatted that. It was really weird. So let's start with verse 1. The Lord is my shepherd. Who is the Lord? Well, the Lord is Yahweh. If you go back into the Hebrew, it's Yahweh here. And this is significant because if you look at, for instance, Mark chapter 1, it says, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, just as is written in Isaiah the prophet, behold, I am sending my messenger before you, who will prepare your way, the voice of one calling out in the wilderness. This is John the Baptist that he's talking about. Prepare the way of the Lord, which is quoting an Old Testament passage where this is Yahweh. Make his path, Yahweh's path straight. So who was John the Baptist preaching that was coming? Jesus. So Yahweh is equated with Jesus in the Gospel of Mark. So who is the Lord? It's Jesus. Okay? Jesus is my shepherd. So let's make things more personal here. I will not be in need. If you have God and you lose everything else, you have all you need. Jesus is my shepherd. I have all I need. Well, what if I get sick? What if I die? What if all these different things happen? What if, President Biden ruins the world? And, what if all these different things and the vaccine makes me sick? And, hold on. Okay, just hold on. The Lord is my shepherd. My trust isn't in a vaccine or not a vaccine, wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. Do those things that you feel you need to. You feel is best. Absolutely okay. I'm not trying to sway your opinion on that one way or another. But our purpose has to be God. It has to be focused in on God. Jesus is my shepherd. I will not be in need. Whatever else I lose, my health, my wealth, my home, Jesus is with me. And that's a very big comfort. If you can let go of what you want and how things should have gone, there's the real trick. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. This is very important because, God made the comment in Exodus. He says, I am. It's kind of a difficult thing to translate, but maybe I am who I am that I am, I will be what I will be. It's kind of difficult to translate, but Israel was a nation of shepherds, and so Jesus, or God, it doesn't really matter what we're saying for this context, God is one, he showed himself as a shepherd to Israel. In the same way, God desires to walk with us and to show himself powerful in our situation too. These verses have so much to do with what we're going through. So God gives rest. He provides. He gives peace and comfort. Okay, all right, those are great, right? But here's the thing. See, people who have to tend to sheep, they have to move them from place to place. They have to. Any shepherd will tell you this. You have to move the sheep around, but that's not what we see in verse 2. It says, he lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. But with God, we don't have to go from place to place. We don't have to keep looking for satisfaction and contentment. We can find it in God. That takes us to verse 3. He restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for the sake of his name. See, think about this. He restores my soul. What does that mean? He brings me back to life. He revives me. He lifts me back up. I didn't know what to do this last year, yet God guided me. He guides me in the paths of righteousness. He's there with us. He leads us. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, see, we're not kept safe from problems ever happening. We don't live in these little bubbles. Problems are all around us. We don't have to deny the reality of what's going on, regardless of whether the virus is, the world's biggest deal or the world's smallest deal. That's not even the issue. We are walking through the valleys of death every day. Even if there was no virus, we are all going to die. None of us are going to make it through this alive. But God guides us. So we are faced with death and despair, depression, anxiety. It weighs down upon us. Even Paul talked about this. But I know that he is still guiding us. He is with us. He isn't wasting our time or wearing us out for no purpose. No matter what comes, God will see us through it, even if it is death. The Bible says that God disciplines those who he loves, and discipline isn't like we're thinking of beating us. It's more of instructing us, leading us, rebuking us, punishing us. It's a lot more diverse than we think, and it's all for our good in the end. So then that takes us to these other things here. In the next part of verse 4, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Okay, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. What's going on there? Well, the rod was used for defending sheep, and the staff was used for guiding the sheep. So when God disciplines, corrects, guides, and protects us, it's a comfort. Maybe not now, but eventually. God is trying to help us. He knows what's best. And that's hard because we want to pretend like we know what's best. Verse 5, you prepare a table before me. In the presence of my enemies, you have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Even when everyone is against us, he meets us there with a feast in his presence. Have you ever just worshipped God when you're going through a hard time? I always thought that this was saying, you make me eat in front of my enemies just to piss them off. That's not what he's saying at all. He's saying that even when I'm surrounded and I've got all these things and concerns, you meet me even there. Even in these losing situations, these difficult times, you still meet me there. His blessings overtake us when others act deceitfully, when problems surround us, when bitter despair consumes us. The situation doesn't dictate God's goodness. So then that takes us to the last verse of this passage here, verse 6. Certainly goodness and faithfulness will follow me all the days of my life. That sounds more passive than it actually is. That they will chase after me. They will pursue me. God's goodness and faithfulness will chase me down. God chases us down with his goodness and invites us in when the world pushes us out. My dwelling will be in the house of the Lord forever, not just when I die. See, we need to be careful because from a psychological perspective, nobody can go on for forever. You need to have times of rest. You need to get help from others. There was some research shown when pastors go through hard times and betrayal, they tend to pull back from people. But the research shows that when you isolate yourself, that just makes it worse. The better cure is actually to get involved with people. Maybe not with the people who betrayed you, but those kinds of hurts, your brain processes them the same as a physical hurt. That, to me, that's kind of a big deal. So how does this have anything to do with our lives? Let's wrap things up here. First off, instead of mourning, worrying, getting angry, or focusing on what you can't change, discover who God is and what that can mean to you. See, this world offers no hope, but God is the reality of hope. He is hope defined. Everything that we have no hope at this time, he is the fulfillment of that. Well, what if I die? He'll meet us even there, and he'll carry us through. Even in death, he will be there with us. Well, what if I lose my job? God will lead us and guide us even if we lose everything we have. This world offers no peace, but God is our refuge. When all this stuff threatens to overtake us and wrap us up in despair and ruin us and squash our purpose, we know that God is our strength and our guide. And he will bless us even when we are in a bad place. God's blessing is not removal from problems or distress. It is presence and faithfulness, and it is worth more, as Robinson Crusoe mentioned in the book, Robinson Crusoe. It is worth more to have God in a mess than it is to not be in the mess. If I had to choose between not being in this mess and not having God, or being in this mess and having God, it's worth more to be in the mess and have God. He is our purpose, he's our drive, and he's our contentment.